I'd never read the Dead by Moonrise pamphlet, but it would have helped a lot if I had. I should have known it was time, the minute I saw the sun dip below the horizon. The sheriff hadn't said what time he'd come, just that he'd be by soon enough, and that the first visit to town had to be on their terms. I remember watching the sun stretch thin, like melted wax, then the weird orange fog hanging heavy over everything, like the sky wasn't quite ready to let go of the day. Maybe that's when it started to hit me that I was waiting for something wrong. The houses along the street were all quiet. The whole town felt still and everyone had their windows closed and their curtains drawn. And for some reason, I couldn't help but feel like they were all watching me, peeking out and watching him come for me. He'd slowly come around, making his rounds, picking up the usuals. Around that special time each month, with an interval of the synodic few weeks between. It was always the same group. The Ruster kids, a few strange adults, that priest of all people, that old lady who'd always smile too much. And then there was the scientist, Dr. Chase, I think his name was, always had that wheelchair and that weird gleam in his eye. It was always the same ones. And, of course, I'd seen them go into that jail once, twice, but I didn't know why. I didn't really ask. It wasn't until last night that I realized something about the whole situation felt systematic. I wasn't like the others. I wasn't here for a repeat. But wasn't I? The sheriff had told me he had no choice except to pick me up tonight. And when I asked why, he just smiled like I should have known better than to ask. Like I wasn't supposed to acknowledge what was really happening here. And I didn't. Not then, anyway. But I do now. The first confession was small. Nothing major. I'd broken into the old chapel down by the woods a few weeks ago, just out of curiosity. But that felt like a tiny crime compared to what came later. The thing is, the more I think back to it, the more I wonder if the sheriff picked me up because of that very first sin, or if it was because he was always going to find me anyway. After that night in the chapel, things started happening. Small things, creeping up on me when I was alone. The strange feeling that I wasn't alone in my own skin. The first shift, I thought I was just losing my mind. Staring at myself in the mirror, watching my eyes change. My hands felt wrong. I didn't even understand what was happening. Only that the changes were coming on faster and faster, like a clock ticking down to something I couldn't escape. But I wasn't like the others, right? There's a town secret I'm learning now. The sheriff's office is more of a halfway house than a jail. The prisoners never stay in there for long. It's a revolving door and they always come back. Like the way you can't outrun a nightmare no matter how fast you run. When I woke up in that cell the last time, something inside me clicked. I wasn't just a stranger in a town full of strange people anymore. I was one of them. My thoughts splintered more with each passing hour, each day. And with the nights, God, the nights were the worst. The hunger, it clawed its way into me, gnawing and scraping. An instinct I could no longer ignore. I started seeing things, hearing them. The sounds of footsteps echoing just outside my door when I was alone. But when I looked, nothing. There were whispers in the dark. I don't think I ever felt safe again after that. Then came the second confession. I confessed to the usual small sins, the lying, the stealing of food when I was younger, when I was hungry. I could almost hear the sheriff's low chuckle through the bars, knowing my fears were getting the best of me. But what else could I do? What other sins could I confess to while the beast inside was starting to stir? There's this kind of terror that wells up inside me, losing myself, losing the little things that make me me. I'd rather tell all my secrets and say this isn't one of them. It isn't my secret. It is my living nightmare. I'm not even sure what it is that I am afraid of. It is so many things all in one. I see it when I look into my own eyes in the mirror. This sort of yellow, raving blur behind my gaze. The discoloration of my eyes and the way they look at me like I am prey. Like those aren't my eyes anymore. I am terrified. And then it all came flooding back. The howl that echoed through my veins. The ripping sensation as my bones split and reformed. The feeling of fur growing, claws extending from my fingers. The uncontrollable, horrifying need to hunt, to run. It feels like a stretch that just forces itself out with a sigh, a sort of tearing sound, a feeling that things are popping and shifting inside, bones realigning themselves painfully. Each aspect of this horror is this pale, drooling madness to contemplate. Yet I have nothing left to consider except my sins. To be unforgiven is to be remembered. I wish someone would remember me, as I was, and tell me I am still the same. I wish I could hear that and believe in it. I tremble now, in fear, as the setting sun gives way to the treacherous moonlight. As I sit, incarcerated, caged, I am somehow still wandering around outside, a wild animal and incapable of recalling what I do or where I go. Unable to decide, my free will stolen by this disease of not the mind or the body. No, something deep within the well of the conscious mind, nothing but feral rage and the fear of what it would do, regardless of what I love. I am left with a vision, imagining myself, somehow as myself, and in the visage of the terror from within. Would that confession sound like this? So now here I am, standing before the sheriff's office. My reflection in the glass doesn't look like me anymore. It looks like something else. The transformation is complete, but I still don't know what to do with it. I want to scream, but my voice is gone. The monster inside me is growing stronger by the minute, pushing me to say the last thing I never wanted to admit out loud. I'm a werewolf, a goddamn monster, and I can feel the sheriff waiting outside, patiently. I know he's heard it all before. He's probably heard the screams and the howls of the others, the ones who confessed long before me. They're all behind bars, waiting for the night to come again, when their own transformations will set them free. There's no guilt and fear, just raw horror of what we become. I was a fool thinking I was safe, an infected bite when the enormous dog fell upon me, old and with twisted legs. Few escape such an encounter. I tripped over a tipped wheelchair as I scrambled for safety, screaming in terror and agony as I clutched the dripping wound. I was a fool to think I would not be infected, no, cursed. I never believed in such things. The sheriff apologized to me, as he rarely misses a pickup on time. I am sorry for what I did. I should not have trespassed into an abandoned place. Such a place belongs to the monsters. I hear the pack calling in the night, their voice is silenced, behind the brick walls of the jail. I can still hear them. They are already changing. Who am I to deny their call? That was last night. I went with the sheriff and I was locked up again, but now I am back home. I shouldn't be here. Someone should remember me. Tell me I don't believe in monsters. Why am I so different now? I come back to this form. I am human again, but I am just a disguise for the cursed thing within me. If I am cut or hurt, it heals too quickly, and I barely feel it. I choke on my old vegetarian diet and plow my face uncontrollably into the dog food, eating like an animal. So hungry, and then I shiver and ask myself, how will I continue this way? I am afraid of this, afraid of myself. I am afraid of the pack, afraid of what we become together, and the danger we represent. Not a physical danger, as we are collected and safely stored for the night. No, it is when we are free, the danger to who we are. I see how they go about dealing with the isolation and the terror of knowing what dwells within each of us. I see how they shake it off and smile like devils, always getting their way with everyone. We are predators, elevated to stun others into submission. Is that part of the beast or something true about ourselves as people? I fear the answer either way. They are looking at me, I can feel it. All the skies swing round and round, the days flying past, not one of them good. At night, I am awake and alert, and they are waiting patiently for me to stop being so scared. A bad town to move to, but it's my town now. And the worst part? I think I'm going to join them,